And I do believe I did see come in here into the studio my next guest into the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center, Noel Frias with the NAACP, I believe, is here. So I appreciate your coming in today, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. We've been in touch over email over the past, few weeks with what's been going on with the NAACP Providence branch. You and some members of the NAACP Providence branch have been taking issue with leadership, and it really I don't want to say it culminated for you, but really for the public to really get that first sense of having the protest at the breakfast the other Saturday, the Freedom From breakfast. So talk with us a little bit how this came to be, and of course I'll have a number of questions, but how this came to this point.
All right, so it began because there was a lot of division within the leadership. There were members who thought that the way that the leadership was guiding the branch was in violation of our bylaws. We felt as if some of the members were deliberately ignoring the bylaws, were making executive decisions. Myself, who stands on the adult board, and Pilar McLeod, who stands on the executive committee, and Juan Carter, who also stands on the executive committee, also the treasurer and the first vice president, we began to voice our anger and our frustration towards the leadership. Now, of course, at first it sounds as if it's internal issues, but it began to become an issue when earlier this month, during our executive committee, we discovered that the president, Jim Vincent, had been lying about his membership. He had been purposely not paying his membership unless it was re-election season. And once he had paid that membership, he would then fail to pay his membership until, again, he was up for re-election.
And how often does that take place, or elections for the NAACP?
Every 2 years.
Okay.
So that means he hadn't paid, and currently Mr. Vincent has a life membership, and that breaks up into, if you paid up front, then you pay the life membership, and if you don't, then you pay quarterly. He would purposely not pay his quarterly dues until it was time for re-election. So at the meeting, we discovered he wasn't even a member of the branch, and he was serving as president. Also in that meeting, we had been provided with the finances, and they were very sketchy. There had been some inconsistencies. The first vice president demanded an audit. Mr. Vincent denied the audit, and this wasn't the first time we had requested an audit. Back in December, there was an election that was held. We have evidence that Mr. Vincent is currently holding and refusing to give to us that proves that that election was rigged, that there were some inconsistencies, that protocol was not followed, and when we demanded the evidence when we demanded this evidence, he refused to give it to us.
So let me ask you a question here, because when we had reached out to Jim following the initial protest at that breakfast, we were referred to Juan Cofield with the New England Area Council, and Jim said that he would speak. Now, Mr. Cofield had said that some of and you've seen the language that he's used, haven't gone through the proper internal procedures, I guess, airing grievances with the New England Council level. Can you talk a little bit to that? You've clearly seen the response that has come from Juan. What is your response to that?
So my response to Juan is that there is a process. The national bylaw says there's a process. We attempted to remove Mr. Vincent. We did not have significant signatures. It has to be done by, I believe, 25 members would have to sign off on this impeachment, and then you have to be provided with legitimate evidence as to why the person should be impeached. We attempted to vote out Jim Vincent. Obviously, that'd be the logical thing to do. If you see a dictator type of leader, you vote him out. When we tried to do that, again, protocol wasn't followed and the election was very shaky. So those are usually the avenues we would take, but again, it has failed us. Juan was well aware of what's been going on. Juan's the one that informed us that Mr. Vincent wasn't a member. He even said in a private meeting that he was going to ask Mr. Vincent to step down, and then he reinstated Mr. Vincent, because what must be understood that once we discovered that Mr. Vincent was not a member of the branch, he was asked to step down from his position, pay his membership dues, and then he'd be reinstated. Juan had then told us that once he paid his dues, we would not be reinstating him and asking him to publicly step down. Then Juan turned around and reinstated him as president, despite the fact that that was supposed to be a vote amongst the branch.
And how long have you been a member of the NAACP for?
Nearly 3 years now.
Okay. And is this, in terms of, you had planned a meeting this week that you had hoped that Jim and Pilar and others would be able to sit down and talk about things. Jim did not go and Juan sent an email, which I saw, that told NAACP members that this was not a sanctioned event by the NAACP. Pilar is still participating in a hunger strike.
Yes.
And here we stand on Thursday afternoon. You had tried to call that meeting. Where do things stand now?
So, to kind of give some clarity on that meeting, yes, he could argue that it wasn't a sanctioned meeting. However, it was a community meeting, and the community wanted Jim Vincent's side of the story because Jim Vincent hasn't approached us, hasn't given us a call. However, Ms. Pilar is on day 6 of her hunger strike, I believe now 128 hours, and Jim Vincent still hasn't approached her. And I think if you are a leader, and you see this type of situation, you take control of it and say, hey, how can we resolve this? But he hasn't done that. He, from what I understand, he's still walking amongst the community as if nothing's going on. And my concern is just her health and where her health is going to be. And when Juan sent out that email, I felt very offended and I was very upset because if you're going to be the NAACP and you tell the community, hey, we're not going to participate in your community meeting, then you're telling the community that we can ask you for your money, we can ask you for your support, but when it comes to leadership and keeping that leadership accountable for your community, you need to butt out, and it has to remain internally, which is wrong because the NAACP is not an extension. The NAACP is an extension of the community. The community is not an extension of the NAACP.
And you talk about finding these issues and bringing these issues to light. You've been a member for 3 years. Do you see a disconnect between the youth and leadership? As what are the major issues that you see at play here?
So I'd like to emphasize that this is not an issue between youth and adults. This is not an internal issue. This is an issue of ethics and leadership. And it's the unwillingness by many members of the executive board and Jim Vincent himself, unwilling to be held accountable. When it comes to the young people, I hear their frustrations. I lived through their frustrations because I was the president of the youth council for 2 years. And I sat there and we've had multiple private meetings with Mr. Vincent. Some of them we have minutes too that he refused to give to us. And in those meetings, we have had discussions with him where he refuses to take accountability for his unwillingness to be transparent, ethical, and honest, and his unwillingness to groom the next generation. As a leader, you're supposed to take people under your wing. You're supposed to guide the young people. Jim Vincent and many members of the executive board have been unwilling to do that.
So, as I said, here we are Thursday afternoon. What's your plan through the rest of the weekend, the week? How are you going to move forward with this, what you're up to?
So we're going to continue to report this, any updates we have. Ms. Pilar, her hunger strike, I must emphasize this, is separate from ours. Our protest, she had no idea we were going to protest until the day of. We didn't know she was on hunger strike until the day of the breakfast. And as of now, she will continue her hunger strike because she says she's willing to take this until they drag her into the hospital and they stick a needle into her arm. On our end, we're going to continue to report it to the news. I just got a report saying that I will be on the Dan York show, and we are going to be talking about it in the Dan York show. And we're going to be I'm in contact with WPRI, the Providence Journal, many other individuals. We're going to continue to be making it known that there was a lack of accountability regarding the branch's leadership, their finances, and many other issues.
Well, I appreciate your coming here today. Again, after the protest, we did reach out. We had a piece. Jim referred us to Juan. We're going to continue to report, again, on both sides of this issue here at Go Local. So, Noel Frias, I appreciate your coming in today, and I'm sure we will talk more in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
I'll let you go. Noel Frias with the NAACP. Again, this is a continuation of the protests that had occurred outside of the Freedom Front breakfast for the NAACP Providence branch just the other weekend. Just followed up again, Noel did, with some more information. Again, we have reached out to Jim. He has referred all comment to Juan Cofield with the New England Area Council of the NAACP. But clearly a lot going on here. I appreciate Noel coming to tell his side of what is taking place. As I said, I'm sure we'll be talking with him more and as this moves forward here.